Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you who may or not know me, my name is Mark Robertson, and I have been in the mortgage business here in San Diego since 2003, and have become a big student of the market and just economics and kind of what's happening. And I love to solve problems. I think of myself as kind of when you guys are feeling a lot of pain or our clients are feeling a lot of pain, just trying to figure out solutions that are going to help us. And so, what the major thing right now that's causing a lot of friction is really just fear and insecurity in the market. And so my goal today is just to give you some of the tools that we've been using to very successfully get buyers and sellers to understand the market in simple terms, and what's going on to make more sense out of it. And so my hope is that today, as I go through the slide deck here, that you all walk out of here with a better understanding of what's happening in the market and what we think is going to happen, and how that's going to help buyers and sellers understand. And if they understand, I do think that they will transact with us a little bit more. And we have a lot of success around this. And I really wanted this to kind of be interactive. So please do insert your questions, comments into the chat. I'll do my best as we move through here to just make sure that I'm answering those things. A couple of rules. One, I'm not an economist. I'm not a futurist. You're not going to hear me. I'm not going to be one of the people on social media saying the market's not going to crash and because of this and because of that, and this is going to happen. I don't believe that I know what is going to happen. I do my best to just sort through the data, make the best conclusions I can, and empower people to make their own decisions. And so, the two rules are that, hey, I'm not that guy. And number two, I'm not saying that I know what's going to happen, but I think the data tells a pretty compelling story. And this is what I'd like you guys to kind of focus on, right? What buyers are you working with in the last year that for whatever reason they didn't end up buying? Maybe they just couldn't get an offer accepted, couldn't get an offer accepted. You were driving them all around and they just couldn't get it done, right? And now maybe they're priced out of the market and they're super frustrated. Write those names down. Those people are really great people to talk to and take through this same presentation. Two, who's lowballing right now because they think it's a great opportunity and sellers are just ticked off, right? And on the listing side, are you getting a bunch of lowball offers? Those are really great people for what's going on right now as well, for Eric or myself to talk to. And what homeowners have you talked to in the last year that expressed interest in moving? Now, if any of you on this call own a home and you've owned that home for the last 2 years, how many of you thought about selling, even if it was for 30 seconds, right? I did. I own 2 homes. I 100% thought about selling. I still think of it right now, right? So those people are really great people to talk to. And are you working with any sellers who are contemplating a price reduction? I bet you are, because I've looked at the data in San Diego County. I'll share that with you. But let's find some people we can help. I don't want to walk away from here without you guys being able to take massive action and actually translate this into something that's going to help your business and serve your clients and serve the real estate community here in San Diego. Okay. So first, I'll just start with a question. And that question is, I would like you to type it into the chat. What do you think is going to happen in San Diego County real estate to home prices if interest rates go to 4%? As of today, I just looked right before I came on here at Rocket Mortgage. They're advertising 7.25% on a 30-year fixed, good old 30-year fixed Fannie Freddie mortgage. So what do you think is going to happen if interest rates go down to 4%? I'll wait for people. Eric says bonkers. Assume that means that you think it's going to go crazy, Eric. Jara says it's going to be a frenzy. Anyone else? Any of our agents out there? What do you guys think is going to happen to real estate if rates go down to 4? Oh, prices will skyrocket, David Silva says. I didn't have like this Q&A session. Liz, I know that you don't think that it will happen. I'd love to see what your thoughts are later. Oh, the chat is disabled. Oh, people can't chat. Tammy says chat's disabled. Sarah says the same. It's going to be a frenzy. Liz, I'm especially interested in what you think at the end of this. I know that you don't think it will happen, but if it did, what do you think would happen? Ditto on chat. Is there a way that we can enable the chat, Jara?
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, cool. So 100% of the people that I've asked so far agree with you guys that if that were to happen, thanks, Robert Wolf texted me that the chat is disabled. If that were to happen, that prices would go up. And I tend to agree with you that is likely what is going to happen. And so I want to just present some information and slowly and methodically take you through the market, and we'll come back to this idea right here. Okay, so this is Fed history. Burns and Volcker, we'll just talk about Volcker, inherited inflation in the United States of America at 7%, and it went to 14%. At the time, interest rates were at 12%. They went up to 18%. And the Fed funds rate, which is what you hear them raising, they're raising the Fed funds rate, went from 11% to 20%. That's a 900 basis point increase, 9% increase. And what they did just last week, or yeah, that was last week, was 0.75%. This was a 9% increase. Inflation went from 14 down to 5, and mortgage rates went from 18 back down to 12. S&P was down 30%, and it sparked a recession. Alan Greenspan inherited inflation at 1.75. It went to 3.5. Mortgage rates were at 7. They went up to 8.5. The Fed funds rate went from 4.75 up to 6.5. Inflation's response, it went from 3.5 back down to 1, and mortgage rates came down from 8.5 to 5.5. Jerome Powell inherited inflation at 1.5%, and it's gone to 8.5%. Mortgage rates at the time were 2.5. Now, as you saw on that last slide, this slide is dated, up to 7.25. The Fed funds rate, it's gone from 0 up to 3%, probably going to be higher than that. And so they're expecting Jerome Powell, he's raising these interest rates, trying to get inflation to come down. That's the whole reason that they're raising rates, to make it more expensive to borrow. Mortgage rates, which are not directly tied to this, should come down as a response. And a lot of people believe that we will go into a recession. Jared's asking to try the chat now. If you guys want to try the normal chat, let's just see if that works. So here's historically what has gone on when, yay, perfect, it works. The chat is fixed. Everyone come to chat. Boom, yay. So that's historically what's gone on. So as you guys hear that the Fed is raising interest rates, you know historically what has taken place. So let's see historically what happens when Fed hikes take place. So this is going back to 1955. This white line is the Fed funds rate. And these gray bars in every single chart that I show you are recessions. So as you can see, as the Fed funds rate starts to climb, recession hit, and the Fed funds rate comes back down. It starts to climb, recession, big long climb here, right? Recession, climb, recession, climb, recession, climb, recession. This one's kind of climby, I guess, from this point. Recession went way down, climb, recession, climb, recession, climb, recession. So every single time that the Fed funds rate gets crazy, with maybe one exception here, it leads to a recession. And so that's why a lot of people think that with the government raising these interest rates, that it will lead to a recessionary environment, right? But contrarian viewpoint is like, hey, we ain't gonna have no recession with 3.2% unemployment, right? No one's unemployed. The economy is super robust. So we can't possibly be in a recession. So let's look at the unemployment rate in recessions. So as you can see here, unemployment rate, it's super low, right? Recession happens and unemployment skyrockets. It gets ratcheted back down, dips below 3%, skyrockets, back down, skyrocket, down, skyrocket, down, skyrocket, down, skyrocket, down, skyrocket. So you can see a trend here, right? Every time unemployment starts to come down, recession hits, unemployment goes back up. It's kind of like a rebalancing. And so low unemployment is actually one of the indicators that a recession may be looming. And so I would tell you guys to keep your eye on unemployment because that's one of the major indicators that we're already in a recession. And there's a lot of experts that believe we are. Okay, so let's look at the data and just what triggers a recession. And I promise I'll land this plane here in a minute. But here's what I want you to know. Headline CPI inflation. So when that CPI, which is just the core inflation, strips out energy and food, when that's above 5%, there's historically a 45% chance that we'll be in a recession. And when the unemployment rate is below 4%, there's a 42% chance of recession. And we've hit both of these triggers already. But when the headline CPI is above 5 and unemployment is below 4, historically, 100% of the time, we have gone into a recession. And that happened in Q1 of 2022. Okay, so when we look at just the data figures, it seems like there's a pretty strong chance that we're in a recession. Okay, Mark, I get it. So I'm just going to wait for the recession, and then I will buy a house, when the recession comes. Go ahead. Let's field that question, Jared, because I don't want to move on if Tammy had a question. Just go ahead and come off mute because I can't monitor the chat. Hey, Tammy.
Tammy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, well, go ahead, and when she's ready, I'll message her. If you guys have a question, raise your hand and I'll allow you guys to talk.
Okay, she doesn't have a question, she said. Okay, cool. I just didn't want to move on if there was a question. So, all right, so we're moving on here. Okay, so how do mortgage rates fare in recessions? So going back to the 1980s here, as you can see, we went in at just over 12.5 and came in just under 12.5. So rates went down slightly. In the later 80s recession, we went in at almost 17% and came out at 14%. In 1990s, we went down. Early 2000s, we went down. 2008, we went way down. In COVID that you guys just went through, we went down as well, right? Well, what about prices then? So this white line is home appreciation. And again, as I've told you guys, these gray bars are recessions. And as you can see in the 60s, we stayed flat, maybe went down a little bit. Maybe our values dipped a little bit right there. In the 70s, we went up slightly in the second recession. In the 80s, we went up. 90s, we went up. Early 2000s, we went way up. The the mortgage meltdown, we went way down, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody here on this call. And COVID, we went up drastically. So in every single recession, except for the mortgage meltdown, prices have gone up and rates have gone down. And so I like to think of this right here as greed, right? When people are really worried and scared, they're not buying real estate, right? And when everybody is on the train, as you can see, that happened here with really low interest rates. It happened right here in the lead up to 2008. Everybody wants in and everybody wants to drive. And here is kind of my point. If we look at the data, this is what your clients are seeing. Okay, like each of these headlines is from one analyst. I just took one analyst, for example. She's on MSNBC. She's their real estate correspondent. She handles all of their real estate and covers real estate, and she has been for a long time. And these are all her actual quotes. In October of 2015, she said, Housing today is a bubble larger than 2006. And so what I did was I took a $300,000 price point, and what actually happened nationally was a 5.1% appreciation. So that $300,000 house got $15,000 of appreciation. It's now worth $315,000. In August of 2016, she said, we're in a new housing bubble. We actually got 5.4% appreciation, $17,000 of growth, $332,000 is what that house is worth now. November of 2017, a year later, homeownership doesn't build wealth, a study finds. 6.1% appreciation, $20,000, house is now worth $353,000. In September of 28, she said it's better to rent than to buy in today's housing market. 4.1% appreciation, made another 14 grand. House is worth $367,000. In July 2019, the housing market is about to shift in a bad way for buyers. 4% appreciation, $15,000 in appreciation, $382,000. December of 2019, next year will be hard on the housing market, especially in these big cities. 16% appreciation, $61,000. At the end of July of 21, when she said the housing boom is over, we got another 18% of appreciation, and the house is worth $523,000. So if someone had stayed out of the market when she said that it's a bubble larger than 2006, that house that was worth $300,000 now worth $523,000. This I just put in here as an example of, these are experts on TV that are handling real estate and are calling these things over and over and over again. And this is what your clients are Googling. It's what they're seeing. It's the only story that is being broadcast out there, because fear is what gets headlines, right? And it may be true. I'm not going to say that housing's not going to dip, that we're not going to see a major correction. I'm just saying that the data suggests a different story, and no one is telling this story. Everyone is telling the fear story. So let's just look at basic fundamentals, right? In the crash, we had 3.81 million homes for sale. Currently, there's actually a little bit less than a million. My slide is a little bit outdated, but let's just say 1.1 million to be really conservative is the inventory that's on the market, right? So we have less than a third of the inventory right now. So that's the supply side of the equation. And on the demand side, during 2007, we had 116 household formation, 116 million. So that means a household is formed. Maybe, you know, my kid is ready to get married. She ties the knot. Oh my God, I don't think I'm prepared for that as a father, but she ties the knot, they move out, they want their own home to start having their own babies. That's a new household formation. So 116 million were happening in 2007. In 2021, we had 129 million household formations. That's 14 million more households. And the inventory, you know, again, going back 1.1 million. So we have a lot of demand, not a lot of supply. And this is what a lot of people have been preaching. Hey, the housing market's not going to crash because of supply and demand. This is what they're talking about. This is the demand side. We have 14 million more families that need homes right now than we did back in the crash in 2007. Okay, Fannie Mae just came out, and I told you I'm not predicting interest rates. I'm not saying something's going to happen, but Fannie Mae is a government institution that insures lenders against losses. And they've won awards in 2016 and 2015 for accuracy. They're quoting 4.7 in Q1, 4.4% by the end of the year next year. And there's a lot of experts. I was just in Las Vegas. I saw Barry Habib give a presentation. He's won Zillow's Crystal Ball Award, I think 3 years running for accurately predicting real estate markets. Is an economist. He's millions of people subscribe to watch mortgage rates, when you should lock, when you should float. And he believes that in March, April of next year, we're going to see rates below 5%. So a lot of experts are predicting that this is going to happen. So here's the conclusion, right? If this does happen, and I think we could all agree that based on the data, there is a possibility that this would happen. Real estate skyrockets, making it harder for our buyers to get in and to get a house. And so we need to tackle the problem that is keeping buyers sidelined and keeping them on the fence. And that is affordability. And I think if we can solve the affordability problem for our buyers, a lot of them will move. And I'll show you some case studies of successes that we've had. Let me just look and just see if there's anybody that I'm currently working with. No, I don't see anybody that I'm currently working with where we've had a lot of success stories since I originally gave this presentation back on September 8th. We've worked with a lot of agents who went through this and immediately started referring people over to us to just go through this information. I'm going the wrong way here. But it's possible that rates could go down. If it does go down, then we're going to be on the other side of the fence again, multiple offers on property because affordability comes down. A lot of people will be getting into the market. It'll be really hard to get offers accepted. Sellers certainly will be less willing, as we saw when there was just a frenzy, to work with our buyers. And we're seeing a lot of sellers that are willing to work with our buyers. The main thing that I'm seeing with your buyers, you guys, is that people are scared. They just can't, like, they saw 3% interest rates less than a year ago, and now we're at 7%, and that is super scary. It's scary for me. So I know it's scary for the buyers, and I think it's valid that they have fear, especially when they're reading headlines like the ones that I showed you. And so I think taking them through this data to show them supply and demand, to show them that inflation is what's causing these interest rates to go up. And if inflation comes down, which is what the Fed is doing, they're trying to get inflation to come down, it's very likely that rates will come down. And once they understand that, then they're saying, man, this really could be an opportunity, because if I get in, even if it's a higher interest rate right now and rates come down, my property value is likely to go up. And they're coming to that conclusion on their own. And again, I want to repeat for the 900th time, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm just saying that it's very likely that it will happen. And if it does happen, I just want your buyers to know. All right. So we're seeing an all-time record of contract cancellations. You guys are probably experiencing right now. We're seeing a lot of buyers just put in lowball offers to listings. We're seeing a lot of listing cancellations. I'm seeing sellers do bananas price reductions right now and leaving a lot of money. So do you have, on the listing side, a price reduction mitigation strategy? Do you have a way to keep that money in your seller's pocket and still help on the affordability side of the equation? I just looked at this. This is just earlier this month, so the slide is, I don't have September's data yet. But since COVID, we're seeing the highest percentage of price cancellations that we've ever seen. We were almost to COVID levels. And I'm guessing, based on what I'm seeing, if I'm a microcosm here of San Diego County, that will get back pretty close to where we were during COVID. So people were freaked out during COVID. This is how they're feeling right now. More price drop than any time since at least 2013. This is San Diego County. I just pulled this up off of Redfin. Over 50% of the inventory that we've got on the market is experiencing a price drop. Why do you think price drops and cancellations are happening nationwide? This next slide is the punchline of the whole thing. Here's what the issue is, guys. Inventory has changed a little bit. Pricing has changed a little bit. But most of all, what has changed is affordability. And so these are national numbers. If you look at 2020, which is this gray line on the bottom, we'll go to September. Payments were just under $1,500 a month for a house. And if you look at September of 2021, even though pricing was going crazy, right? You saw 18% appreciation. The price difference for people to pay their actual mortgage went from just under $1,500 to maybe, let's just call this $1,625, maybe $125 a month, right? Where were we in June? $2,459. From, it's $1,000 more every single month. That's a 45% increase in affordability. So this is why, this is the only thing that is astronomical, is this is a huge deviation from the norm. Not the huge appreciation that we had that constitutes, a price reduction, not supply, not demand, it's affordability, it's these interest rates. And so if we can solve this problem for people, I believe that inventory will start to move, because this is the huge outlier in the data, is the affordability. So I'm just going to read through any questions that we might have here. How do you think inflation will come down unless the Fed funds increase enough, as I don't see the government can stomach that? And even if Powell increases rates for inflation to come down, how do you expect that to happen if the government is still printing money? Have no idea, Liz. I'm not like smart enough to tell you how the manipulation of the currency is going to affect all this, and certainly don't want to go down that path. I want to stick here to the fundamentals, and my opinion is that rates are going to come down. And if that happens, I believe that housing is going to be more affordable. And if housing is more affordable, I believe that it will again rock back to a seller's market. And I might be wrong. I don't know how the manipulation of the currency stays in there. I'm sorry that I can't answer that more intelligently. I'm just not that smart. All right, I'm going to move through here. If anybody else has questions, let me know. So how do we attack that affordability problem then? The solution is a seller paid rate buy down. It has three main benefits. One, the buyer can get a lower monthly payment forever for the life of the loan. And we can put them in that house so that they feel secure that if the worst case happens, as long as they can make their payments, they will be okay. Number two, it helps the buyers qualify for a higher price point. And that can sometimes allow them to get into a better property. I was talking with an agent yesterday who was at this presentation on September 8th. He handed me a buyer. Buyer stuck at 1.2, that's all they can qualify. Seller stuck at 1.4, that's all that they can qualify. And we were able to bridge the gap and get that payment to the same place as it was at 1.4 at 1.2. And I'll show you exactly how we did that. The seller wins because in this strategy is applying the money toward the buy down is 2 to 3 times more effective. So the seller actually nets more money and the buyer has a more affordable payment. There's no catch. There's no hidden agenda. There's no trick. There are pros and cons, right? And so let's go through it. I'll tell you an actual case study. So these rates are a little bit dated. This is the same slides that I used in my September 8th presentation, but market price on this home, let's look right here on this first column, 675,000. The buyer was putting down about 70 grand. Loan amount was 607,500. Interest rate at that time, 5.49%. It made his payments after taxes, insurance, HOA, all of that, 3,801. And they were asking for a price reduction to bring the 675 down to 650. I know, doesn't seem like that much, but this is the actual case. That would have put his loan amount at 585, same exact interest rate. Payment, $3,670, would have made the monthly saving $130 more to that buyer. The seller said, nope, we are not going to reduce by 25 grand. Don't even submit the offer. It's not worth our time. We're just not going to go that low. Well, what if we could get half of that? Could we get a credit of $12,500, which we got them to agree to do? And we took this $12,500 and we paid points on the loan. So the seller said, here's $12,500. We'll apply it to your loan. And we bought the interest rate down. We basically gave the lender points to get the interest rate to 4.875 instead of 5.49. Still at a 675 purchase price. So yes, the buyer has to pay a higher tax rate forever at that 675. And still with the taxes, the HOA, and the mortgage payment, it saved them $301 versus the $130. It's more than twice as powerful because we're using half the money and we're saving them double. So it's about 40 some odd percent more powerful by way of making that that house more affordable for the buyer. And if you thought that 6% interest rates were freaking people out, wait until they see 7.25. So I'm predicting that in the short term, you're going to see this seller paid strategy work a lot better. If you were to try to recreate this payment by way of a price reduction, in other words, if you said, seller, I need I need this price in order for me to buy your home. I need this price at $300 cheaper. You would have had to lower the price to $616. Okay, so instead of $60,000, the seller only had to give up $12,000. So the seller's netting about 50 grand, $48,000 more money to their bottom line, and the buyer has double the savings. The payment is $301 cheaper. And so here's what this looks like over time. The savings over 60 months, if they would have just reduced the price, would have been $6,000 to that buyer. But buying this seller buy down and buying out the mortgage insurance, the savings was $22,000 better over 5 years to the buyer. If they would have reduced the price all the way down to that 601, it still didn't save them as much money as this saved them. Here's what the interest and savings looks like over 15 years. That price reduction strategy, they would have paid $425,000. Here, they only paid $381,000 in interest over 15 years. So as you can see, you know, a $44,000 savings to the buyer by doing the seller paid buy down. And this again assumes that they're in this rate forever and that they never refinance and that rates don't come back down. And I think that this is what buyers really care about. Why do they care about that? Because they're fearful that those rates will never come back down and that they're going to be stuck with a 7.25% interest rate forever. And so making them feel comfortable that this is their worst case scenario for all time. And if they can hack that payment, they're good, makes them feel secure, and allows the seller to net more money rather than reducing the price. Here's a jumbo scenario, probably a little more familiar to all of you. But on this loan, the purchase price was 1.35, loan amount was 1.08, sorry, 5.5% interest rate, taxes, insurance, everything. The total monthly payment, $73.69 a month. Asking for almost a $100,000 price reduction, $75,000 price reduction. It would have brought the price down to 1.275. Loan amount just about $60,000 lower. It saved the client $409. Taking half of that seller rate buy down, just $37,500, we're able to buy the rate down from 5.5 to 4.375, keeping the purchase price at 1.35, but giving a credit of $37,500. This gets their rate to 4.375 in the scenario, saves them $739 a month, almost double what it did with the 75 grand. Okay, if we were to reduce the price to try to emulate the same payment, would have had to reduce all the way down to 1.215. So this buyer is saving an extra $330 a month, keeping the price the same, ensuring values in the neighborhood, which is also good for the buyer who's now an owner in that neighborhood, and making it super affordable for them. Again, if we would reduce the price, they would have saved 15 grand over the normal deal versus $60,000 over 5 years. As you can see, you know, it's $45,000 savings over 5 years. It's very meaningful to the buyer. And here again, almost $100,000 in savings over 10 years in interest, you know, because we have a jumbo loan here. So I just wanted to go through some case studies, tell you guys how this works. I actually have made a tool to make this super easy. Let me stop share here. And I will go back. Let me just share my screen again here. Can you guys see this, this spreadsheet that I have here?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, cool. So let's just say how this works. This is the deal I was working on yesterday. All the things in blue, you can change yourself. And so let's just say that we've got $1,250,000 purchase price, and the buyer has got a 20% down payment. Everything's going to populate here. That leaves their loan at $1 million bucks. Eric, where do you think rates are today on a jumbo deal? 6.75.
Spot on.
Okay. So on a 30-year fix, that puts their mortgage payment at $64.8598. Okay. And let's just say that the seller, let's just say that they owe $500,000 on their current loan. So that's going to net them. Their total net here is $750,000 bucks. Let's say that the buyer lowballs you and they want, I don't know, let's just say 1.1. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I think it populates in a different spot. Let me undo, enter. Let's just say that they want $150,000 price reduction. So if they did that, that would mean that they want the house at $1.1 million. Okay, but you, because you have like gone through this little course, this little info mastermind, you're like, man, what if we did a seller buy down? Because my seller, no way are they going to come from down from 1.25 to 1.1, but maybe I could get them to, let's just say, I don't know, 1.2, $50,000. So we'll just say that they've got $50,000 here to buy the interest rate down. And in this case that I was using yesterday, I got the client to go to an adjustable rate mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage, and I was able to get them to about 4.625%. Eric, do you have rates up? What would 5 points get us on $1 million from
on a par?
No, on a 30-year fixed.
6.125.
Cool. Let's just say it got us to 6.125. Okay. So in this case, let's just see, 50 grand here, 150 price reduction. In this case, it's $409 more. And so the seller would have been better to actually take this price reduction, and we can't get there. So we would have had to like move them to an arm, or we would need more money. So let's just, okay, that didn't work. Like, man, we're going to need more money. Let's get $60,000. And based on what Eric just said, I think that'll probably get us down to 5.75 roughly. Okay. So now our payment here is, it's still, do I have this right? It's still about $100 more, but we're getting really close. Hey, we can get you within $100 of your payment for this 60 grand versus this 150. So you're keeping 90 grand in your seller's pocket, and you are you're getting really close to where the buyer needs to be. So you can kind of see how this tool will help you. And here's the answer, guys. If you're able to get this price reduction to this point, it's like bringing the price down to 1.124. So you can do all of this math very easily just by filling out the blue fields. The only thing that you need to know from the lender is like, hey, what are these interest rates? I just need to make sure that I've got the interest rates and the spread right. But everything else you can fill out in the blue. It will all auto-populate for you. And here's how you can use this. One, you can have a really quick ballpark with a buyer. Or two, when you go into a listing, you can say, hey, Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, right? Because you're going into a listing to take the listing. Look, you can show them that chart that I showed you. It's pretty easy. It's Redfin's information, and Redfin is a great place to get data, by the way. Price reductions are happening on half of the houses. So I think it's really important that we price this property right. But let's just say they play hardball. Hey, Robert, I get it, but I really want my 1.25 for this property, and I think it's worth it, and they push you. And you say, okay, listen, I'm going to do this, and I actually have a price reduction mitigation strategy. And here's how we're going to handle this if we start to get lowball offers. Here's like exactly what we're going to do. And you pull up this spreadsheet, you fill it out for them. You know that you've got a plan that nets them more money. Do you think your competitor is walking into that listing with this spreadsheet and showing them exactly how they're going to handle a price reduction? Most people are trying to avoid that conversation, and they don't have a strategy around it. It's just, hey, I think we need to lower the price. If you go in there and you tell them exactly how you're going to net them more money, it is great for sellers and it is great for buyers. And so if you want a copy of that tool, just text me. I'm going to put my number in the chat. Oh, just send it to Jara. Sorry. I'm going to put my number in the chat. Can I get everyone? No, I can't. Shoot. 858-401-9353 is my number. Actually, here's what I'll do. I'll share.
You got it.
Okay, cool. I can share it here. But if you text me and say, hey, Mark, send me that tool. I recorded a little video of how to fill out the spreadsheet, that I just took you through, you're still going to need to know rates and how much of a buy down you can get. But if you do that, it's a really simple tool that you guys can use right away.
We had a couple questions too.
Sure.
Mark. One, who is the economist that you had quoted earlier, so that they can make sure not to pay attention to her?
Oh, Diana Olick.
Okay, so Diana Olick on that, Liz.
Yeah.
And then, is affordability now at 14%, expected to be 10?
I don't know what affordability is expected to be. It still is exactly where you saw it, and rates have gone up even more. Let me just show you guys a quick picture of the mortgage market here. Oh, wow, we rebounded while I was talking. What happened, Eric? All right, I'm gonna show you guys this screen. So
Continued volatility, Mark. A wild day.
So yeah, I was looking right here just so you guys can see. This chart looks super fancy and really complicated, but it's not that hard. You don't need a master's in finance to understand what's happening. This is mortgage-backed securities, and these are the yields, how much that bond is paying, that mortgage-backed security is paying. And as these yields go down, they're paying less for them. Interest rates are going up. Rates have to go up to attract more buyers, right? So this is bad. When it goes down, that's bad for interest rates. And so as you can see, inflationary numbers came out right here, and this thing just absolutely tanked. This is like, we've gone down about 6 points in fee in less than a month here. So that's a pretty big change. To give you some perspective, let me just see if I can make my chart longer. If I take this thing out for a year, you see earlier this year, we were way up here, and now we're way down here. So to look at that, that's what, 96.5, and this was 109. So basically 15 points in fee. So what do you mean, Mark? What's 15 points in fee? Well, what would have cost you 0 points at the beginning of the year would now cost you 15 points. And sellers won't even allow you to pay 15 points. Like, you can't really pay more than 6 points on a deal that they're going to cap it. And so a lot of those rates aren't even there anymore, but that's what's crushed our affordability. So hopefully that.
Is the cost of a point, does that fluctuate day to day?
No, let's talk about that. That's a really good question. 1 point equals 1% of the loan amount. So if I have a $500,000 loan, 1 point is $5,000. And the max we can get as a seller credit to buy down the interest rate in most cases is 6 points. So $30,000 is the max. Sometimes it would be $15,000, 3 points. But as a general rule, that you can't just buy infinite amount of points to pay down the interest rate. And Robert, I saw your question. What does 1 point get you? It is different every single day, and it's a really hard question to answer. Just between yesterday and today, the volatility in the market has been insane. Like, we haven't seen it in months and months be like this. Probably since COVID, we haven't seen that fluctuation. And Eric, if you want to jump in on that. So it's a hard question to answer today. It gets you about a quarter normally, a point, but that's not a good rule of thumb right now. Would you say it any differently, Eric?
No, same. I mean, we haven't experienced the volatility we've seen in mortgage-backed securities since March of 2020, where, I mean, volatility was at an all-time high. Just perspective, from Friday through trading yesterday, we saw over 305 basis points, which is an equivalent to 0.75% in mortgage rate swing from open Friday to close of trading yesterday. Normal trading activity, I would say, is, anywhere between 10 and 15 basis points on a day. So just, perspective on that front.
Yeah, and it has diminishing returns. So let's pretend that you're the bank, and I say, hey, today's rate's 7.25. It's going to cost you 2 points to get to 6.875 from 7.25. So I paid 2 points and I only got 0.375 down, right? If I take another 2 points, and it might just take me from 6.875 to 6.75. Like, it's diminishing returns. Like, the lower you go, the more it costs you, because the lender is taking the risk at delivering that really low rate for 30 years, and they don't want to do that.
And just on that, Tammy had asked, when you say seller credit, does the seller actually have to provide cash, or is that just a credit through, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so let's just say I'm the buyer and I'm saying, hey, I want 6 points on my loan to get this low interest rate. It's a fee charged to me. So Jara's on the sheet gonna say, hey, the buyer has a fee of the 6 points. Let's take our $500,000 loan, for example. That's $30,000. It's a charge to the buyer. Seller is gonna issue a credit for the $30,000. So now it's a charge to me, but the seller is paying for it. So there's no cash that exchanged hands. All that money is just going from the proceeds at escrow, and it's allocated over to the buyer's cost by Jara and her team. Make sense?
Awesome. I think we got everybody's questions that were in the chat. If anybody else has questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A so we can get them addressed. Hey, Mark, what happens if somebody's locked into a rate? So they've got, you know, I don't even know, with rates changing every day. And then the rates go up, and then in order to buy that down, will they be able to buy down from the rate that's locked in, or how does that work?
So when you lock a rate in, you're really just saying this moment in time, right? So let's just say that I locked somebody 2 days ago. First of all, they're stoked because the market has gone absolutely bananas. That I locked them 2 days ago instead of just yesterday. But let's just say that they wanted a 0-point loan 2 days ago, and now they've got this giant seller credit, and they're like, hey, I would actually like a lower interest rate. I would go back to that day's rate sheet and I would say, okay, what does 2 points get me? And I could still buy the rate down. So when you lock, you're really just locking that moment in time, but there are repercussions that come from that. And so I don't want all of you to think it's super easy, because let's say the opposite happened. Let's just say that they paid 2 points and now they're like, hey, you know what? I believe Mark. I think these rates are going to go down. And because of that, I just want to pay this super high interest rate until rates come down. And then I want to pay Mark to refinance me into a lower rate because I think rates are going to go to 4%. Now they say, hey, Mark, instead of 2 points, I want 0 points. Take my rate from, 5.8 to 6.5. I'm just making stuff up. Now I have an APR change, right? The annual percentage rate on that client's loan just went up. And who were the guys that caused the meltdown? All these lenders, terrible people, right? So now, because the APR changed upward, I have another 3 days that I have to wait. I have to send a disclosure out. I have to say, hey, you actually requested it. Even though you requested it, it's in writing. We signed it. We had it notarized. We sent it to the President of the United States. He said, hey, this is okay. We still have to wait 3 days before we can close. So there are some repercussions around timing and disclosures when you change someone's rates up or down. So you need to be aware of that, but you can go up and down the rate sheet once you are locked. You're not like locked into that actual rate. You're locked into that day. So here's what that means. Let's say I locked you 2 days ago and today the market went down by 200 basis points. And now what you paid 2 points for yesterday is free today. Nothing you can do. You're stuck on that day's pricing. It would be like me calling and buying Apple stock, and then I see the Apple stock gets cheaper and me saying, hey, guess what? I want it just a little bit cheaper. Doesn't work that way. Hope that makes sense.
That does. Okay, so Brianna asked, if interest rates drop prior to year 2 with 1% less interest rate, can you refinance, or are you stuck finishing out the 2-to-1 buy down?
No, the 2-to-1 buy down is a different concept than I've spoken about here today. But no, you can refinance anytime you want. There's no prepayment penalty. If rates come down, you can get those rates down. And as I understand it, you can even be refunded that money. So let's just say on a 2-1 buy down, all you're doing is you're pre-funding the difference in the payment. So if the payment is truly $1,000 and you get the rate 2% lower, and that lowers your payment by $300 over 1 year, that's $3,600. Follow me? So that $3,600, let's just say that at month 6 you refied. Well, you get half of that back. What is that? $1,800. That $1,800 comes back to you, and you can refi to a lower rate, and you're good. That's in a 2-1 buy down, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it could get pretty complicated. What I'm talking is a permanent buy down. Like in the situations that I showed you, the rate doesn't ever move. It's a good old 30-year fixed or an ARM, and it's fixed for that entire time. And Daddy Carpenter, I saw that you asked, can buyers deduct that point? Absolutely. So points are tax deductible on a purchase as interest. And so if you paid 6 points, $30,000, but the seller gave you a credit for you, it's still a charge to me, the buyer. So I can still deduct that from a tax standpoint. Check with your CPA. I'm not a CPA.
Okay, we got another one. Dennis asked, can you pay for the MI, I assume that's mortgage insurance, up front on an FHA like you can on conventional?
Can you buy out the MI? You can. Oh man, it's been so long since I checked this out, Eric. Do you know the answer to this? I think you can, but it has to be in its entirety. You can't.
Yes.
You can't buy it out partially, and it's
Like
really
the VA funding fee. You have to buy out in totality.
okay. Dennis, I want to research that just to make sure, but I believe that's the answer. It's pretty salty because it's 0.85%, and that would be going on for 20 years until, oh no, for the life of the loan. So
Unless you put 10% down.
right, unless there's a 10% down payment. So I'd want to check that to make sure, but I think the answer is yes, Dennis.
All right, I think that's all of the questions that I saw. Great questions, guys.
Cool. Well, listen, my goal here is simply to help you guys in what I think is a very difficult market, to give you the tools to empower your buyers and sellers, right? I don't think it's like, hey, you should do this because it's the best window of all time. No, I think it's like, hey, here's what the data suggests. This is a very strong possibility that this has happened. No one's going to tell them that, hey, it's very possible in the middle of next year, rates are going to 4%. And it's scary to buy now. But if that happens and you bought now and your rate came down, you can just pay more to refinance. You're going to have that lower rate for all time. And most people believe it goes to 4%. I just asked every realtor on this call. They said it's all going to go in a frenzy, that then your values are going to climb. So Warren Buffett has a statement that says, when others are fearful, be greedy. When others are greedy, be fearful. Everyone is scared right now. So if you need a house and if you believe that this is going to happen, this could be one of the best windows to purchase in San Diego County, because I'm telling you, I'm proof. I'm making a guy, a buyer at 1.4 who's only qualified at 1.2, and that is coming because the seller is willing to give the 6%, right? If the seller wasn't willing to do that, which if you think they're going to be willing to do that when rates go to 4%, I didn't see that happen at all. I couldn't even get a contingent buyer accepted during that time. And no one is telling this story. And it's very possible that it's going to happen, right? And so hopefully it empowers you. It empowers your buyers. We're here to help you guys. It is best if you say something to the effect of, hey, I was just on a presentation with this lender that puts on this event for us. He took me through some really information that was compelling. I would love it if we could jump on for 15 minutes and just walk through the slides. We can all jump on a Zoom call like this. Eric can do it. I can do it. I can just walk them through it, tell them the story and say, look, no one's telling this story. I just want to walk you through it. Come to your own conclusion. And it's really helpful. The opposite of that is not saying anything. And then rates go to 4% and they can't get their offer accepted. And now this opportunity has passed them by. So I hope that helps. I hope it helps you keep more money in your sellers' pockets, make homes more affordable for your buyers, and just give you one more tool in your tool chest. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. I'm incredibly grateful for so many of you on this call. I cannot say that enough. I know a mortgage is just a mortgage to some people, but there's people on this call that have supported me for a very long time in my career. And it's very meaningful to me and to my family that you continue to support us on the mortgage side. I know Eric feels the same way, as does Jara, Amanda, the whole crew at First American. So I just want to thank you guys for taking the time and for giving us the space and the opportunity.